What's up everyone? If you're looking for an easy dub in Division 2, then this build's for you. This is my current turret and drone build. It does the work for you. All you have to do is drop your skills and let them melt everything. This build has helped me clear both solo and group content with ease. This build's all about letting skills do the work for you. I use the striker drone and the assault turret. I can deal consistent damage, range damage while staying in cover and regenning armor for me and my teammates. I consider this my AFK build because I've been able to take control points by hitting skills buttons and then setting the controller down completely. You only need to fire your weapons to help your skills deal more damage, and in this video I'll break down the gear, stats, and tips for farming and using this easy dub build. Alright, before I get started, I settled on this build after building about 3 other skill builds focused on skill damage using the assault turret and the striker drone as the focal points. I tried all things. I used, I can show you here, used refractor with waveform, the baseline refractor. I had other turret builds with just high end and waveform as well. And this is the one I settled on as being the best. So let's jump into the gear setup. Farming for the 4-piece refractor is both easy and frustrating at the same time, and I tell you why. Because the mask and the holster both come as skill tiers, so it's easy to get skill damage as your secondary, which is what you want for your attributes all throughout this build. Then the gloves and the knee pads both come in armor cores. So you can see here is I got the gloves in skill damage as the secondary attribute, and then I recalibrated the core attribute to be a skill tier. But on the knee pads, I wasn't able to find skill damage attributes, so I left the core as armor and then recalibrated the skill damage onto the attribute, which isn't a big deal because I knew I was using technician specialization, which I'll talk about here in a second, which gives you a bonus +1 skill tier. Okay, next we want to get a 2-piece for the chest and backpack Hannah U Corporation. You're looking for attributes of skill damage and skill haste, as well as the talent kinetic momentum. When in combat, each skill generates a stack while active or not on cooldown. Stacks increase your total skill damage by 1.5% and total skill repair by 2% up to 15 stacks. So while the drone and the turret are active, they'll be boosting up stacks to the point where they get 22.5% total skill damage. And then also by having the two-piece Hannah U, you'll get a 10% skill haste and 10% skill damage bonus as well. Next, you're going to get the Hannah U backpack. Once again, get the skill damage and skill haste attributes, and then tech support is what we're going to use as our talent. Skill kills increase total skill damage by 25% for 25 seconds. I found this was the best one. Just once you get that first kill, you have a pretty good bonus going as you chain more kills in. Farming for the chest and backpack, the Hannah U Corporation, is not too difficult because as you can see it comes base, the brand comes base with skill tier and skill attributes mainly. The key is you want to get skill damage, skill haste, and kinetic momentum or tech support on the backpack. You want to find pieces that have 2 of those 3 and then recalibrate. So as you can see here, I got a roll for the chest that was skill damage and skill haste, and then I modified the talent to be kinetic momentum to match my needs for the build. Other talents you could use for the body armor in particular, you could go with glass cannon on the talents, but I decided not to. I chose to go with a little more survivability rather than a baseline damage buff. For my weapons, I'm using the capacitor and the mop, the same as I used for my previous skill build video. The capacitor gives you the talent capacitance. Shooting enemies builds up stacks to cap of 40. Each stack grants 1.5 skill damage after 5 seconds. Stacks decay 1 per second. And for each skill tier, gains 7.5 weapon damage, which essentially gives a skill damage buff up to 60% and then a weapon damage up to 45%. You'll know if you're at max capacity on the capacitor when the bar on the right side of the weapon gets to 40 or fills up, but it will also glow orange. The next weapon I like to use is the mop because it gives 10% armor on kill, which works well with refractor to just continuously regen armor as you're taking out enemies. It also I recalibrated it to have the talent in sync. So in sync, hitting an enemy grants 15% skill damage for 5 seconds. Using a non-shield skill or damaging an enemy with the skill grants 15% weapon damage for 5 seconds. Damage increases are doubled while both buffs are active at the same time. So essentially, as you're continuously shooting enemies with the mop, you'll have a buff of 30% skill damage, which is what we're going for with this build. You can also use other weapons with talent in sync, or the SMG test subject has perfectly in sync, which will have a total damage buff of 40%, but these are the two I like to use as they're easiest to maintain. For our skills, we're going to run the Assault Turret and the Striker Drone. You can see I'm tier 6 on both. My mods, I have duration and damage mods on each of them. The duration is just to help with the kinetic momentum. The longer uptime, the more stacks we'll be able to maintain and keep more damage being dealt. For my specialization, I'm using the Technician. It gives me that +1 skill tier, mainly because I have that armor core on my knee pad, so I wanted to get that +1 to get to tier 6 on all my skills. I'm using overclock CPU, gives a 10% base skill damage. And then over here on the left, I've got 3 into shotguns for 15% shotgun on the mop, and then 15% increased assault rifle damage for the capacitor. Alright, and one last thing before I get into my techniques for this. For my modifiers, I'm using Assault Link as my active modifier. We want the bonus weapon damage, even though we're using mostly skills to do damage. This will just help for tight situations with tankier bosses, tankier elites, named guys. For my passives, I'm running Interference Blocker first, so Disrupt Resistance is increased by 10% for each electronics tier. Hands-on, while at electronics tier 5, 50% of your skill haste value is added as skill damage. This one's the biggest bonus for us, as we're already stacking skill haste as a second to skill damage in this build. And then lastly, for any tier and any attribute, gain 10% total health, just for added survivability. Even though I have 1 armor core, still not a whole lot of armor on this build. Compared to some of the other builds I've made, the playstyle for this is very, very slow. You won't be rushing through content like you would with a run and gun build, but it is great for solo players struggling with certain points in missions or struggling to clear level 4 control points. It's by far one of the easiest, and even with hardly any armor, it has good survivability because the enemies mostly attack your skills rather than you. You still have to pay attention, though, to not get hit from different angles or rushing hostiles, but it's very beginner-friendly. The keys to success for this build are to make sure you throw your turret in a good place where it can attack all the enemies. It has a 360-degree field of view, and then once you toss out your drone, just let them do the work. If you're on a controller, you can use the left and the right bumpers to target your turret and drone onto enemies. You can target both of them separately or to the same enemy. This helps counter higher threats or maximize DPS on specific enemies like bosses or tanks. One thing I've noticed is my drone sometimes gets stuck being defensive, and the easiest thing to do is just shoot at someone and the drone follows your lead. Alright, and that's my full turret and drone build. Like I said, not the quickest build for clearing content, but it's safe, simple, and effective. If this helped you, drop a like, comment with your favorite skill setup, and subscribe for weekly Division 2 builds as we search for the best Division 2 has to offer. I also have a poll for my next build. I'm focusing on LMGs for this one, and I'd like to know what you guys think, so let me know in the community tab which weapon you'd like to see me use. See ya!